Winnebago just slashed its own profit forecast by 40%. Same week, they launched 2 brand new vehicles. Thor's laying off workers, Forest River's cutting shifts. But Winnebago just hit the gas anyway. That's the boldest move in RV history, or the one they can't afford to get wrong. The Iowa company that built the American road trip. Before we get into the announcement, you need to understand who Winnebago actually is, because most people know the name, but almost nobody knows the story. And that history explains almost everything about how this company behaves today. Winnebago was founded in 1958 in Forest City, Iowa, a town so small you could probably walk across it in 20 minutes. The idea was simple, but genuinely radical for its time. Build motorhomes on an assembly line, the same way Detroit built cars, instead of having each one custom fabricated by hand, like every other manufacturer was doing back then. Before Winnebago, a motorhome was basically a rich hobbyist's project, something you paid a small workshop to build one at a time, at a price most middle-class families could never touch. Winnebago's founder looked at that model and decided the entire industry was thinking about this wrong. Mass production wasn't just a manufacturing choice. It was a decision to make the American road trip accessible to regular working families instead of just the wealthy. That one decision is why the name Winnebago eventually became shorthand for motorhome, the same way Kleenex became shorthand for tissue, or Xerox became shorthand for photocopying. When your brand name replaces the word for the entire product category in everyday conversation, you know you built something that fundamentally changed how people thought about that product. Most companies never achieve that. Winnebago did it within a couple of decades of opening its doors. Vertical integration is baked into this company's DNA, and it still is today. Winnebago Industries isn't just the Winnebago brand anymore. It's an umbrella over Grand Design, Newmar, Chris-Craft, and Barletta. Motorhomes, travel trailers, luxury diesel coaches, powerboats, and pontoons, all under one corporate roof. All built with the same philosophy of controlling as much of the process in-house as possible. That diversification matters more right now than it ever has, and we'll come back to exactly why it's relevant to this specific announcement in a few minutes. For decades, the Winnebago name has ridden the highs and lows of American road culture like almost no other brand in this industry. The RV boom of the 1960s and 70s, when the interstate highway system was finally connecting the whole country and the Great American Road Trip, became a genuine cultural institution. The gas crisis slumps of the 1970s that nearly killed the entire category overnight. The 2008 financial crash, which came close to wiping the whole RV industry out completely. Dealers folded, factories went dark, and plenty of competitors simply never came back. And then, more recently, the pandemic boom, when RV sales exploded because millions of Americans suddenly wanted to travel without getting on a plane or sleeping in a hotel full of strangers. Winnebago rode that wave as high as anyone in the business, but what goes up that fast comes back down just as hard, and every single person who's followed this industry for more than one cycle knows exactly what that correction looks like. And that's exactly where we are right now. Quick side note, most car problems come from small things people overlook. I put together a simple longevity guide based on everything I've learned, and it walks you through exactly what to watch for. It's linked in the description below. The numbers that show how rough this downturn really is. Let's talk numbers, because they tell you why this announcement is such a genuinely gutsy move, and why so many people in the industry were surprised by the timing. Winnebago reported its fiscal third quarter of 2026 in late June, covering the 3 months ending May 30th. Gross profit came in at $94.9 million, down from $106 million the year before, a meaningful drop for a single quarter. Net income landed at just $14.5 million, or 51 cents a share. Adjusted earnings per share dropped to 66 cents compared to 81 cents in the same quarter last year. That's not a rounding error. That's close to a 20% decline in adjusted profitability year over year in one of America's most recognizable outdoor lifestyle companies. CEO Michael Happe put it plainly on the earnings call. Retail demand is being pressured by elevated fuel costs, geopolitical uncertainty, and weak consumer confidence. Three headwinds hitting at the exact same time, which almost never happens by coincidence. Then came the guidance cut, which is really the headline number here. Winnebago slashed its full-year earnings outlook from a range of $1.50 to $2.20 per share, down to just $1.05 to $1.40. That's not a small trim. That's the company telling Wall Street, in plain language, this year is going to hurt more than we originally thought, and doing it publicly, on the record, in a filing that every analyst and investor in the space reads closely. And it's not just Winnebago feeling this. This is an industry-wide reckoning, and honestly, Winnebago might actually be weathering it better than some of its competitors. Thor Industries, the largest RV manufacturer on the planet by units sold and revenue, is projecting a mid-teens % decline in North American retail for the year. Dealer inventory of Thor's products was down nearly 14% year-over-year as of this spring, which sounds like good news until you realize why it's dropping. Dealers aren't restocking because they can't move what's already sitting on their lots, not because demand suddenly got healthy. Forest River has been running furloughs and reduced shifts across multiple facilities. Norcold, a major RV parts supplier that a huge chunk of the industry depends on for refrigeration components, filed for bankruptcy in 2025, which creates a real supply chain risk for anyone still building or servicing RVs. Winnebago's own stock dropped somewhere between 36% and 40% at points last year, which is the kind of number that makes boardrooms nervous and usually pushes companies toward caution, not expansion. Loan rates on RVs are sitting around 8.5% right now, which turns a big-ticket purchase into a genuinely scary monthly payment for a lot of families. Used RV values have reset back toward pre-pandemic levels, which is brutal news if you bought at the peak back in 2021 and are still holding that loan with negative equity. Industry-wide retail sales were down close to 5% year-over-year as recently as last August, and that trend hasn't meaningfully reversed. The Recreation Vehicle Industry Association's own estimate for calendar year 2026 puts North American wholesale shipments somewhere between 290,000 and 310,000 units, a fraction of the nearly 600,000 units the industry moved back in the 2021 peak year. That's almost half the volume gone in just 5 years. This is the environment Winnebago is operating in right now, cutting profit forecasts in public, watching consumer confidence sag month after month, watching competitors slow down, furlough workers, and lay people off in waves. And then they launched 2 new vehicles anyway. The announcement that caught the industry off guard. Here's what actually happened and why it's such an unusual move for a company in the middle of a guidance cut this severe. In May 2026, Winnebago announced ARCA, an all-new, off-grid, all-season adventure truck. It joins the Backcountry series alongside the Revel and the Echo, which are already 2 of Winnebago's most respected overlanding platforms among serious outdoor enthusiasts, the kind of buyers who show up to owner forums and know the specs better than most dealership staff. ARCA is built for people who don't just want to camp. They want to disappear off-grid for extended stretches, in any season, in a rig that can actually handle genuinely rough terrain and genuinely cold nights, not just a paved campground with a hookup and a picnic table. This isn't a weekend warrior product with some stickers slapped on a standard chassis. This is Winnebago doubling down with real engineering investment on the fastest-growing, most passionate corner of the entire RV world, adventure travel and overlanding, a segment that's been quietly outperforming the broader industry even through this downturn. Then, barely 6 weeks later, on June 30th, Winnebago dropped a second announcement. The Allura and Racer, a compact Class C motorhome built on a Ford chassis. And this one is aimed at a completely different buyer than Arca. Where Arca chases the hardcore overlander, Elora and Resa chase simplicity above everything else. Winnebago's own product manager, Chris Beanert, said the goal was to strip out the complexity that scares off first-time RV buyers, integrating the core systems into something that feels familiar from day one, instead of requiring a thick manual and a YouTube tutorial playlist just to figure out how to run the water heater or manage the electrical system. It sleeps 4, seats 6, and it starts at $153,772, positioned as a premium, no headaches option rather than a budget entry point. Think about what Winnebago just did here, back to back, in under 2 months. 2 vehicles aimed at 2 completely different customers, the adrenaline-chasing overlander who wants to go further off the beaten path than ever, and the nervous first-timer who just wants their RV to work without a headache the first time they take it out. That's not a scattershot, throw-things-at-the-wall approach. That's a deliberate company trying to cover both ends of a shrinking market at the exact moment several of its competitors are pulling back and playing it safe. And this comes right on the heels of January's Florida RV Super Show, where Winnebago showed up with over 62 RVs on display across its brands, including the Sunflyer Class C and the Thrive Lightweight Travel Trailer, a budget-friendly option built specifically to compete on price when buyers are more cost-conscious than they've been in years. So this isn't a one-off announcement in isolation. It's the third major product push in about 6 months, all landing during the same stretch the company was warning investors about weakening demand. Genius move or dangerous gamble? So here's the real question, and it's the one worth sitting with for a minute. Is this smart, or is this a company doubling down at exactly the wrong moment in the cycle? Let's steelman the risky side first, because it's a genuinely fair concern and not just pessimism for its own sake. Launching new product lines costs real money: tooling, engineering, marketing campaigns, dealer training, and building actual inventory. Right when your own earnings call is telling investors that demand is soft and getting softer by the quarter. If retail sales keep sliding through the rest of 2026 the way Thor is projecting, Winnebago could end up with brand new models sitting on dealer lots right alongside all the older inventory nobody's buying. That's not a hypothetical scenario. It's already happening across the industry, with prior model year stock piling up at dealerships that can't move it fast enough. But here's the counter-argument, and it's the one that actually explains the strategy if you look at what competitors are doing. In a shrinking market, the companies that stand still get eaten alive by the ones still innovating. Thor's own market share numbers show exactly why their towable segment share dipped slightly year over year, while their motorized segment actually grew, in large part because they kept pushing product refreshes even through the downturn instead of freezing development. Thor's own recent filings even talk about their Heartland and Keystone brands going through a deliberate reset, where they paused production, redesigned the lineup, and are now waiting for that refreshed product to work its way through dealer inventory. That's the same underlying idea Winnebago is chasing, just moving faster and more aggressively. Standing pat isn't safety in this industry right now. It's slow, quiet decline that you don't notice until your market share has already eroded. Winnebago's diversified structure gives them room to take this kind of swing in a way that a single brand competitor couldn't as easily absorb. When motorhome demand softens, Chris Craft and Barletta's boat business gives the parent company a financial cushion that pure-play RV manufacturers simply don't have. When budget-conscious buyers pull back on new Class C's, Grand Design's towable lineup, and Newmar's luxury diesel coaches serve completely different price brackets and completely different customer psychologies, spreading the risk across categories that don't all move in the same direction at the same time. This is a company that built itself deliberately over decades to not live or die on one single product category. And that's exactly the kind of structural cushion that lets you launch Arca and Elora in the same year you're cutting guidance, because you're not betting the entire company on either product succeeding. There's also a longer game read here that's easy to miss if you're only looking at this quarter's numbers. Downturns are historically when market share actually changes hands in this industry, not during the boom years when everyone's selling everything they can build. The RV buyers who stick around during a recession, the die-hard overlanders who never stop shopping, and the retirees finally pulling the trigger on that first motorhome regardless of the economy are the ones who will define brand loyalty for the next decade once things recover. If Winnebago captures those two groups now, with Arca's ruggedness and Elora's simplicity, they're not just selling two vehicles in a tough year. They're planting flags in the exact customer segments most likely to expand once this downturn eventually turns around, the way every RV downturn in history eventually has. What this means if you're actually shopping for an RV right now. So what does all of this actually mean for you, the person watching this who's genuinely thinking about buying? If you've been eyeing a new motorhome, this downturn is quietly one of the best negotiating environments the RV market has seen in years. Dealer inventory is elevated across nearly every category. Dealers are motivated to move units off their lots before another model year arrives, and manufacturers are launching new products specifically designed to win over hesitant buyers, which usually comes bundled with aggressive introductory pricing and incentives to get you off the fence and into a signature. This is not a seller's market by any measure. It's a buyer's market, and it's been that way for a while now, with no strong signs of flipping back in the immediate term. If you're an overlander or off-grid enthusiast, Arca is genuinely worth watching closely once real-world owner reviews and independent tests start rolling in, because Winnebago built its entire backcountry series reputation on the Revel and Echo over several years. And this is clearly meant to be the next serious evolution in that lineup, not a quick marketing gimmick rushed out to grab headlines during a slow quarter. If you're a first-time buyer intimidated by everything an RV asks you to learn, water systems, electrical setups, generators, winterizing procedures, all of it, Elora and Risa are a direct, purpose-built answer to exactly that fear. And that price tag near $154,000 puts it solidly in the serious long-term investment, not impulse buy category. So do your homework, compare it against similar Class Cs, and don't rush the decision just because the pitch is appealing. And if you already own a Winnebago product or you're loyal to the brand for other reasons, don't panic about the guidance cut you just heard about. A weaker earnings quarter isn't automatically the same thing as a company in real trouble. This is an industry-wide correction hitting nearly every major manufacturer at once, and Winnebago's diversified brand portfolio across motorhomes, trailers, and boats is precisely the kind of structure built to survive stretches exactly like this one. Before we get to how this whole story wraps up, if this kind of deep dive into what's actually happening behind the headlines is useful to you, hit that like button right now. Drop a comment telling me whether you think Winnebago's timing is brilliant or reckless, and make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on so you don't miss the next one. This channel exists because of people like you who actually care about what's happening in the American car and RV world, not just the surface-level headlines. So let's go back to where we started. Winnebago cut its own profit forecast by nearly 40%. And in that same stretch, in the span of about 6 weeks, they launched 2 brand new vehicles built for 2 completely different customers on top of a full product showcase back in January. That's the whole story right there once you strip away the noise. This isn't a company panicking. This is a company reading the downturn correctly, understanding, the way the best operators in every recession eventually do, that the brands still building compelling product when the market is at its weakest are the ones that come out the other side with the most loyal customers and the strongest competitive position. Thor is leaning on its scale and its multi-brand resets. Forest River is riding out the storm through furloughs and reduced shifts. Winnebago just decided, very publicly, that the best defense in a market this brutal is a genuinely bold offense, And they backed that decision with 2 real product launches instead of just a confident quote on an earnings call. Whether that bet pays off depends on things nobody can fully predict: interest rates, consumer confidence, how long this correction actually lasts, and whether the broader economy gives American families enough breathing room to make a 5- or 6-figure purchase again. But one thing is certain, regardless of how this specific cycle plays out. When the RV industry eventually turns around, and every single downturn in its history has eventually turned around, Winnebago wants to be the name that was still innovating when everyone else went quiet. That's not just a headline written to get clicks. That's a strategy playing out in real time, right now, in Forest City, Iowa. So, where do you land on this one? Are you team smart move, bold bet, or team reckless timing in a market this rough? Maybe you're just excited about Arca or Allura and don't care about the balance sheet at all. Drop it in the comments. I read every single one, and I love seeing where you all land on these. If you're new to America on Wheels, welcome. This is where we dig into the real stories behind American car and RV culture. The engineering, the business decisions, the history, and the moments that actually shape what ends up in driveways and campgrounds across this country. No fluff, no filler, just the stuff car and RV people actually want to understand. Hit subscribe if that's your thing. Ring that bell so you catch the next one the moment it drops, and I'll see you in the next video.